record भी share करूँ. So the first step we normally do is the project risk identification. So today we will discuss mainly about the different techniques involved in the risk identification process. If you last, आपको ये can you see the slide? Project risk management process and question for the project managers.
Yes sir, आपकी slides देख रहे हैं सर हम.
Yes sir.
So we last time discussed the generic process that we established the context, that what is the objectives, what are the stakeholders involved, what will be the criteria for selection or rejection of a particular category of a risk, and then what are the key elements which have to be covered in the risk management plan. Once this context has been decided, then we go for the identification of the risk, and we discuss that there are various techniques, and we will today discuss these techniques. And once the risk register has been developed and the number of risks have been identified, we try to analyze the risk qualitatively and quantitatively. And this will include the review of the likelihood, which is the probability, and the consequence, which is the outcome. So we, based on that, we will then go for the level of risk, category of risk, for example, whether it is a high risk, it's a very high risk, it's a medium or low risk. And once we decide the categories, then we go for the evaluation of the risk in terms of dollar value, in terms of Pak rupees, that what can be the impact of that risk on the project cost, on the project time, and so on. And once we evaluate the risk, we develop the risk response plan. And this risk response plans is implemented, and while we are implementing it, we are trying to review and evaluate that whether the risk plan is going according to the plan or not. This is just a case study that how the, for example, paper from communication, ये एक SCM है, it's a basically a computer related journal in which there is a paper. उस paper से कुछ चीजें मैंने ली है just to share with you that in 1995 annual US spending on the software projects reached approximately $250 billion and encompassed an estimated 175,000 projects. In 1995, US companies alone spent an estimated $59 billion in cost overruns on information system projects and another $81 billion on canceled software projects. So this is just telling us that how the project failure has been very high in the IT and the software development projects. Out of 250 billion total 175,000 projects, we had a very cost overrun of 59 billions, which is a very big amount. And then we had a 81 billion of projects were canceled before full-fledged development. Now, the reason they could identify was that no systematic attempts have been made to identify the software project risks. And this is by and large the common problem in the project management in Pakistan, that there is no organized approach to have the proper project risk management plan with the project managers. The segmented software project risk has been defined as the product of uncertainty associated with the project risk factor and the magnitude of potential loss due to project failures. So it's not only the uncertainty that whether the project will be developed in time and it will respond to the stakeholder needs, but at the same time we lose the customers, we lose the revenue, and so on. So 3 questions about risk factors stand in the way of developing a more disciplined approach to software project. इस पेपर में ये उन्होंने लिखा है कि जब भी आप सॉफ्टवेयर प्रोजेक्ट्स करते हैं तो 3-4 बड़े फंडामेंटल क्वेश्चंस यू नीड टू आंसर. फर्स्ट, what are the typical risk factors software project managers face? So what are the, because every project will have its own peculiar sources and types of risks. So you cannot generalize the risk that we have the same kind of risk available everywhere. No, this cannot be the case. So the first thing is that you try to identify that what are the major risk factors which the project managers can face in the software projects. The second question which you need to answer while dealing with the software projects is that what are the more important risk factors which we need to address. So you may not be able to identify every risk, as I have already discussed in the last lecture, but at the same time you are trying to see that what can be the top 5 or 4 project risks which we would like to undertake. And then the third is which countermeasures are the most effective in mitigating risk given a particular set of risk factors. So once you identify the risk, then you see that what are the important risks, and then you try to develop the risk mitigation plan. One popular method for identifying risk factor therefore has been the use of checklist. हमारे यहाँ सबसे आसान मिसाल के तौर पे जब हम साइट इन्वेस्टिगेशंस करते हैं, जब हम साइट में रिस्क ट्रैवलिंग रिस्क देखते हैं या कोई भी ऐसा रिस्क, हमारे पास एक बड़ा स्टैंडर्ड चेक लिस्ट आ जाता है कि उसमें लिखता है कि जी यू हैव नॉट बीन अंडर एनी ट्रीटमेंट फॉर लास्ट 6 months. Yes, you have not been treated for any surgery, major surgery in the last 6 months. Yes, you are not using some very specific drugs for cancer, this, yes. So while you are checking all these attributes, you are trying to see that you are less vulnerable to the risk. So the most popular and easiest way is to use the checklist. We use this in the projects also, in the construction projects, when we are going to, for example, allow the concreting in the site. We have the checklist method that we go to the site, we try to see that what can be the risk involved in the concreting. So we check the 12 or 10 important parameters of the concreting, and then based on that we allow the concreting. We try to see that the reinforcement has been laid as per the approved drawing. Then we try to see that chairs have been provided to maintain a minimum cover. Then we see that the shuttering, for example, has been provided, which is robust, and the props and the planks have been properly fastened. Then we try to see that the material like aggregate, cement, and sand has been tested, and it has been brought from the approved source. And then we try to see that all the labor is available, for example, which will be required. There is an agreement and they will reach early in the morning, or they may be available in the night of concreting. Then we try to see that there is, for instance, the concrete mixers are available, lifts have been provided, access to the roof has been provided, safety has been ensured. So based on these different requirements of the concreting, we try to see that we click or check each and every attribute of the safety and the concreting, and then based on that, we at the end we allow the concrete pouring and we issue the pour slip, which is normally done in the construction projects. Remember that once you are going to the project site, you should not just check the things in the office. Please go to the site, see the important risks which you can have at the site, and then based on the checklist, you finally decide that whether I should allow the concreting tomorrow or not. Because if there is any accident, if there is any unfortunate event like risk, any disaster which can be placed can lead to a problem. For example, in many times I could see that the shuttering was not properly done at site, and then all of a sudden the shuttering collapsed, and a big part of the slab was not able to pour. So you have to be very careful that while you are assessing the risk and the factors of risk at site, you should personally visit to see the all requirements, not sitting in the office and just checking the things by the information of your junior engineers or the site supervisor, and they tell you, okay, sir, everything is fine, and we are going to pour the concreting tomorrow. So this is very important that when you are developing a checklist, you should visit the site to see that everything has been deployed in proper way as per the standard and codes. Now, the design of this study was, the aim of the study was to develop an authoritative list of risk factors and to determine which of those risk factors are most important. So this study, which was mainly okay, so the risk factors which were involved in this project or in this study, an obvious source of such information is an expert in the field with years of experience. So one way, what they did, and we will discuss this method, which is now called Delphi technique, in which we bring the experts and then we discuss the issues with them. And then finally, we try to see that what can be the top 10 or 5 risks involved. Ranking, okay. Then to achieve variation, the respondent background and cultural setting, Hong Kong, Finland, and United States were chosen as the target population from which the panelists were drawn. So the expert panel was selected from different countries for this study, and this study involved the countries from Hong Kong, from Finland, and from United States, the software engineering experts who were expert in their field, and they brainstorming Delphi technique was adopted. Now, the data collection in this study involved this was divided into 3 phases. A brainstorming round is conducted to elicit as many items as possible from the panel. All panel participate cooperatively in the first phase to ensure that they all are working from a common list of items with common definitions. Each panelist was asked to submit at least 6 factors and provide short description of the factor to aid to the researchers in their collation efforts. So 3 groups from 3 countries, panel experts were studying, and they were advised to give the 6 factors, top factors to identify the risk. Then the 2 independently constructed lists were compared and reconciled by all the authors working together. Exact duplicates were removed. An explanation of the grouping was provided to the panelists. The combined list was circulated to all the panelists for correction, addition, and eventually validation. This is, we normally call it a Delphi technique. We will discuss this later. In the second phase of the study, we separated the panel by country, allowing each panel to independently pare down the risk factor, and we sought to narrow down the list of factor to a manageable number. मिसाल के तौर पे ये मुमकिन है कि पहले जब हमने डिस्कस किया तो तीनों पैनल ने शायद कोई 50 या 60 जो फैक्टर्स आइडेंटिफाई किए हो, तो हमने जब उस पे ट्रायल किया और उनको हमने कहा कि जिसको फर्दर नेरे डाउन करें और 10 फैक्टर्स तो इसको करे 10 very important risk factors which you consider very important for the software development projects. The ranking of the selected factor was done in 3rd phase. Here panel ranked the risk factor in order of priority, that is top ranked factor would be the factor most deserving of the project manager's attention. So these are, this is the technique that followed, that is phase 1 was the brainstorming, and based on the brainstorming, more than 150 items of risk were identified by the panelists. And then out of this, the duplicates were removed, and we reduced that to 150. And then further we had the brainstorming, and this was further reduced to 53 unique factors. And then the second phase that we requested them that they should further reduce the risk factors. So we divided them into three panels. For example, the Hong Kong panel retained the 15, the Finland panel retained 23, and the United States panel retained 17. So this was the second phase. And in the last phase, we then requested them to rather we put a candles ranking is a ranking method, and based on that then we try to see that what are the top 10 ranking. तो इसमें अगर आप देखें, for example, ये वो lake of top management commitment to the project. Now the Hong Kong panel ने इसको फर्स्ट रैंक किया, यूएसए पैनल ने सेकंड, जबकि फिनलैंड ने इसको सेकंड किया, यूएसए ने इसको टॉप कहा. इसी तरह फेलियर टू गेन यूजर कमिटमेंट, दिस इज अनदर फैक्टर, जो हांगकांग ने थर्ड कहा, यूएसए ने फोर्थ कहा और फिनलैंड ने 8 कहा. मिसअंडरस्टैंडिंग द रिक्वायरमेंट्स, ये भी इसी तरह करते करते इसको बेस बनाते हुए we try to identify the 10 or 11 highly ranked. और इस ग्राफ में आप देखते हैं कि जी for example this is just showing you the attitude of the response of the top 3 panels from Hong Kong, United States and Finland, and you would see that one is telling you the 0 no important, less, and if you go to 10, 10 is the highest important. So based on that, all the 3 you can just see that lack of top management is one of the highest ranked risk factor, that normally the top senior management is not having any interest in the project, and they don't take the timely decision, they don't release the funds, they don't review the projects in time, and that leads to the problem so the risk identification, it cannot be managed unless it is first identified. So we discussed that the prime step is to identify the risks. If you can't do that, then you cannot handle the risk. Once the context of the business has been defined, the next step is to utilize the information to identify as many risks as possible. The aim of risk identification is to identify possible risks that may affect either negatively or positively the objectives of the business and the activity under analysis. Answering the following question identify the risk. For example, what can happen in the project? If there is a delay in the project due to monsoon rains, what can happen? If there is increase in the prices of inputs, what can happen? If there is delay in the decision making about the design by the consultant, what can happen? How can it happen? What are the sources? For example, if we say that there can be increase in the prices, inputs, how can it happen? Maybe the increase in prices, maybe some new taxes by the government, some increase in the transportation charges and so on. Why could it happen? Why? What? So all these questions we need to answer. चले जी, इसके बाद थोड़ा कोई खड़ा होके क्लास में पढ़ ले थोड़ा, ताकि मैं थोड़ा सा बात सुनूं और इंटरेक्शन भी हो. कोई भी anyone from class should read this, वो आके जरा काइंडली खड़ा हो जाए और ये रीड कर ले. Anyone from class should stand and read these. Yes.
सर आवाज आ रही है आपको?
आपकी प्रेजेंटेशन नजर आ रही है? कोई खड़ा होके पढ़ ले इसको. हाजी बेटा पढ़ ले, ये जो बोर्ड पे पढ़ ले. रिस्क आइडेंटिफिकेशन बहुत ज्यादा आ रही है सर. क्या आ रही है? आप अनम्यूट करें अपने आप. हाँ जी पढ़ ले, प्लीज रीड फ्रॉम दी प्रेजेंटेशन, प्लीज अनम्यूट। हाँ जी, कोई क्लास में खड़ा होके ये पढ़ ले, आपको प्रेजेंटेशन नजर आ रही है? हाँ, वेर शबीर? शबीर साहब कहाँ भाग गए आप? हाँ, जो फीमेल स्टूडेंट जो बैठी है राइट साइड पे, क्लास की लेफ्ट साइड पे, वो काइंडली आप आके ये प्रेजेंटेशन पढ़ ले। हाँ जी, आपको आवाज आ रही है? मिस्टर वसीम, आप सामने कौन है सर? आप जो ब्लैक मास्क पहनी हुई है, क्या नाम है आपका? वसीम, आवाज आ रही है इनको?
सर क्लास में जो आवाज का मसला है सर, माइक काम नहीं कर रहा है।
यार मुझे तो आवाज आ रही है, व्हाट इज द प्रॉब्लम?
आपकी आवाज नहीं आ रही सर, ये क्लास में हूँ मैं।
तो क्या प्रॉब्लम है यार? ये हम तो रोजाना ये क्लास लेते हैं, आज क्या इशू है? आपका माइक तो बहुत, ये तो बहुत ठीक है, कैमरा काम कर रहा है, व्हाट इज द प्रॉब्लम विद द माइक?
सर टेक्नोलॉजी का इशू है ये क्लास के अंदर।
एक ये उधर से एक बंदे
नहीं
को
चल रहा
खड़ा,
है सर, बड़ा डिस्टर्ब है क्लास के अंदर।
एक ये बंदे को खड़ा करे, ये पढ़े, जहां से आप पढ़ रहे हैं उसको कही ये पढ़ के मुझे सुनाए। ये कौन सामने बैठे? सनाउल्लाह?
सनाउल्लाह साहब पे,
सनाउल्लाह साहब। सर इंटरनेट बहुत डिस्टॉर्ट कर रहा है सर। कॉल करें ना, आप कॉल कर रहे हैं?
इंटरनेट का इशू नहीं है
सर
यार,
कॉल कर रहे
माइक
हैं
का
आपको।
इशू है। इंटरनेट अगर डिस्टर्ब करता तो ये
सर
इतना अच्छा
माइक का इधर नहीं सर, इधर ये तो हम 4G यूज कर रहे हैं ना सर।
नहीं तो 4G में क्या इशू है? व्हाई कांट वी? जब आपकी तस्वीर इतनी अच्छी नजर आती है तो
सर सर इधर तो ये तो फोन पे यूज कर रहे हैं ना सर। जो इंटरनेट यहाँ पे लैन लगा हुआ और वायरलेस लगा हुआ उसमें इश्यू है। केयू के अपने उसमें मसला है सर। ये तो हम अपना वेस्कॉम यूज कर रहे हैं ना सर।
तो उससे आप बोले ना यार, आपकी आवाज तो मुझे आ रही है, तो बोले ना। आप एस्कॉम से बोले या डिस्कॉम से बोले, बोलना चाहिए ना।
सर
बोलने में क्या तकलीफ है? बोलने
सर आपकी आवाज आती है लेकिन अंडरस्टैंडेबल नहीं है सर, ये कहना चाह रहे हैं सर। सर बीच में एक दो जुमले समझ आते हैं लेकिन एक दो जुमलों में इतनी डिस्टोर्शन होती है कि
डॉक्टर
वो
साहब, ये
सेंटेंस में
क्या यार
सेंस नहीं बन रहा
तमाशा
होता
बना
सर।
हुआ है? मैं तो थक गया हूँ आज।
सर ये बात कर लें सर, किससे बात करा दूं?
सर डॉक्टर साहब
वो
फिर इस
फोन
तरह
कर रहे हैं
करें
सर
ना,
आपको।
मेरी क्लास दोबारा कल अरेंज कर ले, और ये टेक्नोलॉजी के इशू नहीं होने चाहिए। इट्स वेरी अनफॉर्चुनेट डॉक्टर।
ठीक है सर, मैं बता
हाँ,
देता हूँ उनको।
थक गया हूँ मैं, इसलिए कि इनसे अब मैनेज ही नहीं हो रहा है, क्या करें। असल में सर इन
ठीक है
लोगों,
सर, मैं बताता
जी,
हूँ।
अब आवाज आ रही है?
सर आवाज बीच में बिल्कुल कंप्लीटली डिस्टॉर्ट हो जाती है सर। बीच में एक दो सेंटेंसेस हैं जो समझ आते हैं सर।
मैं कहता हूँ आप बोले, आपकी आवाज मुझे आ रही है, ये स्लाइड पढ़े ना यार, इसमें क्या डिफिकल्टी है?
सर अभी जो आपने बोला कुछ भी समझ में नहीं आया, वो कंप्लीटली डिस्टॉर्शन में था सर। ओके सर, हम स्लाइड पढ़ रहे हैं सर।
आप पढ़े, आप प्लीज रीड इट आउट।
ओके सर।
Please unmute.